6:33. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. This is the Laconia Planning Board. Could we have a call of the roll, please?
Amy Levasic.
Here.
Rob Moore.
Here.
Rich McNeil.
Here.
Bruce Cheney is absent at the moment. Mike Delvecchia.
Here.
Brett Bellevue.
Here.
Louis Joseph.
Here.
Scott McWilliam.
Here.
Peter Burnett.
Here. Okay, so we're present, and as we previously stated, I guess, they could both be voting members this evening. Both of our alternates are here as well, so that's good. All right. You know, I need this. I don't have my cleaning usually makes me a cheat sheet.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, let me get this thing here. The minutes, the draft minutes from the previous meeting have been distributed to all the members, and I'm assuming you've all reviewed them. Are there any suggestions for alterations, changes? If not, any problem with the chair declaring them accepted as official minutes?
So sorry.
All right, so without exception, then, the February minutes have been accepted. We have no presentations tonight. It looks like the first item we have is a continued public hearing. It's been before us before. It's PL 2022-0070 SP and 0071 CUP Performance Zoning, 71 Winnisquam Avenue. It's a proposal to reconstruct retaining wall, boat ramp, boathouse, etc. Is the applicant here and ready to proceed? There she is. Very good.
Everyone see this okay?
Yep, that looks fine.
Great. So my name is Jessica Jacobson. I am presenting on behalf of Wilcox and Barton. We are the engineers for Naughty Marina, the four parcels, on behalf of Naughty Marina, Inc. As you recall, this was a continued project from the February Planning Board meeting. At that time, we were discussing the city council regarding the 7 head-in spaces, which are to the west of the boat ramp. That has been heard and voted on by the city council. Those were approved as shown for the 7 head-in spaces. In terms of any updates, we have moved forward with the off-site parking designation. That was a big action item between February and March. Understanding that we were discussing the off-site parking to support the marina use, making the parking overall more nearly conforming, because as of right now, I'm sure you're all aware that cars just park head in along the entire frontage, which is not conforming. It does go into the right-of-way, where what we're proposing is just the 7 that have been voted upon by the city council that only minorly encroach. So with the off-site parking to support the use, we have recently received an agreement from the condo association, which allows 16 off-site parking spaces to be designated with signage for the exclusive use of the marina. So that will be off-site with the condo for Naughty Marina. So there is designation in their agreement that shows which 16 spaces are designated with the signage. And in addition to that, each condo user gets 2 spaces for themselves, for the condo, for the office use and whatnot. So it'll be 18 total off-site. So those were the two biggest action items, I should say, that occurred from February to March, along with the geotechnical services that were completed on site. That pertains to essentially all of the DPW's comments we needed the geotech information for, and that is moving along with the structural engineers. They are completing their revised designs because they did have preliminary designs. So they are working on those with the geotech services that were performed on February 22nd. So that should be everything based on what we have discussed previously, but I'm happy to summarize anything and or discuss anything again.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like you addressed the issues and that took into consideration some suggestions that were made the last time you were here.
Yes.
The process does work sometimes. Are there any questions for the applicant from members of the board? Yes, Amy.
Could you remind me again how many slips you have and how many parking spaces?
Yes, good question. So to review the parking and the usage in general, there are 51 boat slips, and that is existing today. So the amount of boat slips is not changing. So there's 51 boat slips, and then there are 2 residential structures. Again, those are to remain. One is to be reconstructed, but the fact still remains that there's 2 dwellings, and then there's going to be an office use off-site. But with that being said, these 2 residential structures will have parking underneath. This one does right now, and this one will with the reconstructed. So with those aside, there's 51 boat slips, and we're proposing 54 with the 18 off-site. So the differential is to assist with office use and whatnot, but it is 51.
You have all your permits? The DES?
Good question. So we have the shoreland permit and we have the wetland permit. Those are both
Those are the biggies.
approved. The wetlands permit is in the the appeal process, excuse me. So we are working through any outstanding appeals, but those both have been approved, but we are in the appeal process for the wetlands.
The internal appeal at the department, you mean?
So it's at the public appeal period. So any abutters and or those, it's at the public
Like the
appeal
public
period.
comment period, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha, all right.
Yes.
And are you reasonably certain of approval on that?
Yes, so we're currently in the appeal period. We are working with the city of Laconia. That is where the appeal period is presently, is that we're discussing this directly with the city of Laconia and working with them and DES. It really pertains to just the DPW comments with the structural comments, and a big step and a big piece of that was obtaining the geotech services. The geotechnical services, like I said, were completed in February.
It's a very unique property. I mean, you have, how many existing slips? You said 51?
51.
And you can do most of this, or almost all of this, within the existing footprint, which is key within the zone that you're in, the shoreline protection zone, so. Very good. Any other questions?
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Certainly.
thank you. Just questions on the parking, if I may. You indicated there would be 18 total off-site
Yes.
parking. I'm looking at my site plan and I see more than that. So I'm a little confused. I see 11 and 11 and.
Yeah, and there's certain designated ones, so that is a
So
very
when you say
good question.
designated, there would be signage or something?
Yes, so there would be signage for it, so I'll go to, demolition and site plan. So there's going to be signage for it, so the ones that they, designated is a portion of these, frontage ones, a portion of these, so basically in these double barrel, or single barrel parking, excuse me, there's a portion of those, and then there are the ones against the building. You can see, so the 5, 3, and 3.
Yep.
Those are going to be designated, and they're just the specific ones that the condo association wants to designate for this. They're working back and forth, and Naughty Marina Inc. is appreciative of the fact that they want to choose which ones they are. So it's all pertaining to where the condo association wants those signs to be.
So the condo association you're referring to, that's an industrial condominium association with
Yeah,
those
that is correct. So that's
commercial
for,
buildings?
yep, so that's for this entire building for 60 Bay Street. So
Alright.
they own the front
this
condo, which is where
Back
the
here.
Naughty Marina Inc. office will be, and that's where the restrooms will be, and with that usage, there's specific designated parking for the marina use. There's 18 total. Each condo obtains 2 parking spaces
Wow, trailers.
for each
That's a big-
condo user, for each condo. But on top of that, there's additional parking, which you're seeing as well. That's just all common space.
I see.
But in addition to that, we're doing designation.
Will some of these spaces accommodate a vehicle and a trailer, tow trailer?
So these are standard parking sizes, so no, they wouldn't, they would not accommodate a trailer. If you were to bring a trailer, you would use 1 parking spot for the trailer, 1 for the car. But that's not the intention. With the designated spaces and the numbers, the boat ramp is not going to be available to day users, and we have that limitation on the plan that the day users, if any, will be limited by parking.
So the plan is that folks would drop their boat and put their trailer elsewhere?
Yes, but there won't be day users, so it would be only marina users who would keep their boat there for the season. So there will be the drop off of the boat for the beginning of the season, and then they'll have their
Oh,
boat at the
so
marina
they
for the
likely use
entire
their-
season.
Their space for their
Yeah.
trailer.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Yep. And then to confirm, it's the spaces along the front and then along the frontage of the road for the designations.
Speaking of signage, I know there was some mention in the conditions that would be no overnighting in the boat slips and
Yes.
no boat washing, et cetera.
Yep.
So
That
there'll
n-
be plenty of signage to indicate all of those sort of restrictions.
So that will be in the lease agreement, the marina agreement, and they have no issue with that. So we have that noted on the plan. We have no issue with that. That's in their
So
agreements,
it'll be
or
in
will
their,
be in
their
their
like
agreements.
contract or whatever. Mhm.
Yep.
The Wild Trail and the tracks, they're off this plan to the south, right?
Yes.
Does it abut, or will the residents have direct access to the Wild Trail in that area? Amy probably knows
Well,
better.
down
Yeah,
Bay
I'm
Street.
sorry, I
Trail
don't-
is over here.
Yeah,
It's,
so they'd have to take a walk down Bay Street to get
Yes.
to it?
Yep.
Right, because they don't converge again until they're over at Bartlett Beach.
correct.
Okay, yeah. All right, thanks. Any other questions? Members of the board, Mr. Mora?
Are they still doing the boat vault or whatever, the lift?
Yes.
Does that require a forklift at all for them to utilize that?
Yes, that is one of the structural designs that is underway.
I
And
didn't hear the question, Rob, what was that?
I asked if they would be required to use a forklift for the boat vault that they're proposing on the project.
Right.
And, do you know if that forklift is gonna have to go onto Winnisquam Ave at all?
It won't, the intention, and I believe that this was a comment either from February or from the TRC, but we have that noted on the weight limitation that it's going to stay on site. So the forklift will stay on the marina site and it will be used for the boat vault as necessary, which will only be for the marina
Okay.
users. So say someone purchased a boat and brought it directly to the marina, that is when it would be used. Otherwise, the marina users would use the ramp because typically each season someone would come with their trailer to do it.
So a boat wouldn't be directly transferred from the forklift into the lake?
So
Like
the,
lowered into they have a
Yes,
vault for that, right? Yeah,
that's when the boat vault would be used,
okay.
yes.
All right. But it will cross Winnisquam Ave to do that?
No, the forklift is on site.
Oh, it's on site
It's
there.
on site.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
I just wanted to be clear on that.
I just have one other,
Sure, Mr.
if I may. I know there's
course, Mr.
been
McGoyan.
quite a few concerns from the Department of Public Works with that sewer vault.
Intersection.
And there's conditions that there be a full-time inspector on site at the developer's expense. I mean, everybody's on board with that, right? I mean, that's a major, major concern. I mean, if there were to, that sewer were to be compromised, we'd be in a world of doo-doo.
Yes, and we,
No pun
for
intended.
I was just gonna say, for lack of a better term, yes, and we
There isn't a
definitely
better
appreciate. Exactly. Yes, we are all very sensitive to that. No one wants that call, so we fully understand that. We are working with the structural engineer for revised structural drawings with the geotechnical information, so that all of the information that we can have prior to construction is there, and we understand that during construction there will need to be further survey and locating in terms of the sensitivity of those locations. So we're definitely understanding of that, and we have that planned with the
You may
construction.
not know this, but directly across the river, there's a couple of big steel tanks.
Yep.
And there's a boat launch.
Yes.
That used to be Laconia's treatment
Yes.
center, treatment plant, and it mixed stormwater with sanitary sewer. They were all in one. So whenever we got a lot of rain, nobody went to Bartlett Beach. That, you know.
That's no
So-
longer the case, by the way, for the public.
Oh, yeah, Amy, geez, yes. Of course, this problem hasn't existed in many years.
It's a real
Good of you to bring it up, though.
Well, he started the poop thing and,
Could I just, I'm not sure I heard the answer to his question, which was, are you on board with a full-time inspector?
We are aware of the requirement and that it's been an not an outstanding. It's been a continuous comment, and that's a comment that we have noted and that we understand.
That's during the
Yes.
construction period
Yes.
only, yeah.
Yes.
But I still don't think you've answered the question. Have you agreed, I don't mean you personally, but
The client,
have the client agreed to that condition or
they,
not?
they understand that it's a condition that's necessary, yes, and they've agreed.
Okay, they have
Yes.
agreed. Thank you.
I'm gonna let you do my cross from now on, Bruce.
Question for you then,
Yes,
Dean.
Rich.
I'm assuming this is the DPW's prime concern is
Sewer,
the sewer.
yes.
Yes,
The fact that the soil is
yes, and
not
we're,
the best material right there and all that stuff.
You know,
And so this is all Wes's concerns?
What is the diameter of the interceptor at that point?
oh, I don't know, but, it holds a lot of doo-doo. Let's put it that way.
Are you
It's gotta
asking?
be at least 4.
Oh, I think somebody said
You know,
6
the
million,
size of the,
6 million gallons?
Yeah, there's 230 and,
Well, obviously, it gets bigger the closer it gets to Franklin.
she has the answer to that, there are 230-inch.
Two
Yeah.
30-inch pipes,
Yeah.
really?
so
and
the
there's
two
another one.
30-inch force mains are to the west, and then these two that are closest to the boat ramp are 6-inch and 10-inch, that are closest to the boat ramp that are over this way.
Those are the
and-
city ones, right? I think the small ones.
Right.
Yeah.
They're the
So-
feeders
so-
into the
Try the ones that-
interceptor.
So Wes and the engineering firm and the client and DES and are negotiating the permit, and essentially it's over the rebuilding of the retaining wall, which everyone recognizes needs to be done.
Right.
And so the question is protecting the sewer lines. And if I had to put a number on it, I would say that we're 85–90% of the way there. There's a few more details that Wes is looking for. And we've been assured that they will be forthcoming and of course, as long as Wes is satisfied with the results, then he will, approve, sign off on the permit. Your condition of approval tonight will be contingent on them getting their final permit and which is dependent on Wes saying, yeah, we're good and we're happy with what's going on.
But I mean, based on what Ms. Jacobson said this evening, the board can assume that the negotiations have been cordial, ongoing, and productive.
Absolutely.
That's all we can ask
Yep,
for.
yep.
Because we only get little snapshots of
That is
things that,
correct.
a project that you've lived with for months.
Yes, that is correct.
Right, so,
That is their condition.
any
yeah.
other questions for Ms.
If we
Jacobson?
approve that, this is one of the recommended conditions.
All right, I'm gonna open the public hearing at 6:50 PM. Are there any abutters to this project that wish to be heard? Or any members of the public?
This is just saying that.
We have to accept this application?
No.
We did it
I'll
last
accept it.
time.
I'll accept it.
Security
Been
deposit
accepted previously.
for it and provide.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice. 6:51, the public hearing has been closed, and we'll hear from the staff report.
So I draw your attention to the handout on your desk. Right at the top of the sheet, after my name, it has updated 3/7/23 on it. That's the one you should be referring to. Very minor changes. And I will tell you exactly where the changes are. If you look at 2A, Public Works Conditions, we clarified that the commercial discharge permit, which already exists for the condo building, just needs to be renewed and updated, as opposed to obtaining a new one. It's just an update of the current. 3B, which was a waterworks condition, has been removed because it's not necessary any longer. And that is the extent of the changes. Staff recommends approval. They have been for all the boards that they need to be. They have their permits either in place or about to be approved. And they are getting ready to go on with their plans. This, I think everyone would agree that this is a long overdue remodeling and rehab of this facility and will be a welcome enhancement to the area. So we recommend approval.
All right. Is the applicant agreeable to the project completion deadlines? Plan revision by May 2nd of this year. site improvement security 2 weeks prior to the start of any site work. The final plans by June 11th, 2023, July 11th, 2023. And the completion of the project by March, wouldn't that be, yeah, March 4th, that's right, 2025. You can live with the plan revision on May
Yes.
2nd? Okay.
Yes.
All right. It sounds like we're well underway. So, what's the pleasure of the board? I think if you were to make a motion, we could easily find the standard findings in here that the zoning district allows this type of use, et cetera, as pointed out under findings of fact in the report.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Dean, when this went to council, do you know if there was any abutters that showed up that had any concerns with the parking and the ramp?
I don't know.
So I had a thought. I'm gonna throw this out here.
If I might answer his question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I don't recall any butters.
Maybe perhaps, well, let's take it up under other business. I was gonna suggest that, given the fact that we now have to include findings of fact, I traditionally, as chair, don't make motions. The ZBA is the opposite. The chair makes the motions all the time. There's nothing in the rules, Robert's rules, that would prohibit the chair from making a motion, except it could give the appearance of impropriety. But given the complicated nature of the process of making the motions now, would the board be agreeable to me basically stating the motion or summarizing it, including the findings that might apply, at which somebody could say so moved, and then there'd be a chance for discussion and modification of that?
I'd be strongly in favor of that.
I
You
would
would.
be too.
You might make a motion, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, hey. So let me give it a shot. So, the motion would be, that the, let me find it, PL 2022-0070 SP, and there's a CUP in there too, right?
Yes.
That. And the conditional use permit, connected therewith, be approved based upon the finding that, all requirements of the site plan regulations have been met. The zoning district allows this type of use, and this allows redevelopment of existing recreational stock or marina. This existed for many years, and it's an improvement. Will also stabilize the shoreline in there, subject also to the conditions specific to that application as set forth in the staff report, sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Anyone?
So moved.
Motion by Counselor Cheney. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Delvecchia. Any comments or restatements? Sensing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? And it passes unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you for your time.
Gonna have to come down this summer and go for a boat ride.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
I just gotta find somebody with a boat. That's funny, you live in Lake City, you know, and you haven't been able to afford to go boating. That's all right. Who's complaining? All right, we're moving on. There were 2 Summer Streets. Are we doing 8 tonight? 8 Summer
You're
Street?
doing 8.
Okay, so PL 2021-005 SP. It's, the address is 8 Summer Street. It's a proposal to add a basement unit in an existing structure so as to create a multifamily. This is currently a single-family home? Is that what it is? Huh?
Duplex.
It's a 2-family now, so this is to add a 3rd unit, basically.
13 Summer Street.
Is the applicant here? Come on up and, please, identify yourself for the record. Please?
My name's Randy Otis. I own 8 Summer Street. I'm looking to add a third unit in the basement and finish the basement off, to give myself a place to live in the city. I got my variance for density. The property's zoned urban commercial. We have 5 parking spaces. The proposal being 2 for the upstairs unit, 2 for the first floor unit, and 1 for the single bedroom basement unit.
Oh, that house. Gotta love Street View. It's creepy to think that they actually set a car with a 360 camera up and down every street in the city of Laconia. Okay, so there's 2 families in there now, and this would be owner occupied?
Correct.
When you live in one of the upstairs apartments, or are you gonna live in down, you're gonna be the cellar dweller?
I would be the cellar dweller if you want to look at it that way.
Well, you've got gravity going for you.
Yes, I do.
So, are there any questions for the applicant? Looks pretty straightforward, eh? All right, well, no questions for the applicant. At 6:59 PM, we're gonna open the public hearing. Are there any abutters to this proposal? Any abutters to the 8 Summer Street? Addition of a third unit? Any members of the public? Sensing none, 6:59:30, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll hear from Mr. Trefethan.
This is relatively straightforward. The applicant has already gone to the zoning board for their variance. They meet all the site plan requirements as required. They have enough parking on site already, which is very unusual for this section of town. We recommend that the board, you can need to accept this application, but minor detail.
We need to
Accept the
accept it
application,
first.
and anyway, when you get to that point, we can approve with the idea that all the site plan regulations have been met. Urban commercial zone allows this additional unit of housing is much needed in the city, and there's no new creation of square footage of building.
You must have the frequent odor of donuts in the neighborhood.
Right next door.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine that? That's a selling point for me, right there. Being right next door to Goody Good Donut. Okay. Any questions for staff?
If I may, Mr.
Sure,
Chairman.
Mr.
For the planning, I'm wondering, Dean, does the city of Laconia, does the fire department do any kind of inspection to ensure there's ample exiting, fire escape type exits?
Yes, they will.
And
When we
alarms and so on?
Yep, one of the conditions is that they obviously need a building permit to create the additional unit, and as part of that process, fire department will review safety egress, and will assess the need for things like sprinklers or any of those things if that's required under the situation.
So that's pretty standard procedure
Yes,
then?
yes.
And that's called an occupancy permit, right? Isn't that what they issue? Like
Well,
in
we
Spring
do,
Clear?
we will be issuing an occupancy permit, but the first step would be the building permit, and the fire department is one of the reviewers of the building permit, and they will review for window sizes and door egresses, et cetera.
Okay. All right.
Dean, on the staff review, it says under impact fee, up towards the top, 7 new units in multifamily category. Oh, yours is lined out and says 1. Okay, never mind.
That's another application?
No, it's just
Okay.
typo. Must be a typo.
Oh,
Mine was crossed off and written.
so,
Yeah, it's one new unit.
One. Yeah, I saw that too, and I just,
so this application would be eligible for up to 80% waiver of the impact fee?
I don't believe he's asking for a waiver, Mr. McWilliams. Would anyone care to make a motion? Okay, so I'll throw it out there.
Accept it first.
We have to
We,
accept it
first, we have to accept the application. Is the application in order and ready for acceptance?
It is.
All those in favor of accepting the application, please raise your hand. Opposed? This matter has been accepted. So now, the question would be whether we're gonna do an approval of this addition of a third unit to a two-family home. It's permitted use in the conditional, in the zone that it occupies, and they have obtained, what'd you say, a variance?
Yes, sir.
From the ZBA, and they're ready to proceed, subject to the usual building permitting process. I think I was at the end. Does anyone want to just say so moved? That's two in a row, Councilman
Trying to save
Cheney.
you.
That's all right. Would someone care to second the council?
Second.
We do have a second. Now, discussion. Any questions?
Did the applicant want to apply for a waiver for the reduction of impact fees?
I would like to, I just don't understand the process of how to do that, but yes, if it's possible.
Well, staff should.
It hasn't been discussed up till now, but we certainly could, we certainly could do that after the fact. We could do that at the next meeting or something like that, to that.
So I think all that Dean requires is there a waiver request for that?
Yeah.
Or should we continue it?
I think the board shouldn't bring it up unless the applicant asks for it. We could safely assume that he's had contact with the staff, and they could explain the process to him, and give him the proper forms, but,
That may or may not be the case.
well, no, but what I'm saying is, if the applicant doesn't ask for a waiver of any particular requirement, it does not, the board under no obligation to bring it up.
Doesn't mean they can't.
No, it doesn't mean we can't.
I just felt like it was a real definition of infill redevelopment of, you know.
Exactly, and we've done it before. The only thing that's really changed is we've added this statement of the impact fees in here. Before, sometimes we didn't even know about it. We weren't sure if the applicant knew about it and talked about it. And at the one that was on, I think, Messer Street, we brought it up, the applicant wasn't aware of that. And we went ahead and approved the waiver right there.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, the poor applicant is standing before us, he's never heard of this. He doesn't know what to ask for, he doesn't know what the criteria for granting a waiver is. In fact, does the board? So, we pick a number out of the air?
I think at this, just from my perspective, I think it would be best to, can't remember, have they voted to approve already?
We voted to accept it. We
We
have a
voted
motion
to
on the table.
accept the
Okay, all right.
motion.
If you
as-
were to vote to approve,
for us is
approve
approval.
the unit tonight, that would not preclude him from coming back and asking for the impact waiver at a later date. And I'll be more than happy to have that discussion with him.
Does that mean the approval, if we voted tonight, the approval would not be final?
The approval would be final, it's just a question of what he's gonna pay for an
Subject to-
impact fee.
So we would add to the motion that the applicant may, the consultation with staff, apply to this board for a waiver.
Sure.
Okay,
That's what I meant too.
is that what?
Move.
Well, yeah, well, so that's now been incorporated in the motion. Everybody understand what the motion is?
I think so.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. There you go.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
All right. Back up in my neighborhood. Big plans for 686 Union Avenue, it looks like. 686 and 708. Actually, I think there's 3 addresses, right?
4, actually.
Oh, come on, you're making.
602,
There's
08, and
there's
16.
a couple of missing numbers there too, because there used to be a whole bunch of houses real close together where the parking area is. Okay, so this is PL 2023-0006 SP. Must have come in early.
And you need to accept this application.
Is it the application in order and ready for acceptance by the board?
Yes.
All right. Would anyone care to make a motion to accept the
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Mora has made a motion. Is there a second? Mr. McNeil, so Mr. Mora, Mr. McNeil. Any discussion? Sensing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. The application has been accepted, and we'll turn it over to you, sir.
I'm Casey, for those who I haven't met yet. Our proposal is to merge two adjacent lots on Union Ave between 686 and 716, and also add 7 new residential units, 5 one-bed, 1-bath, and 2 two-bed, 1-bath, all to existing structures, and also make adjustments to parking to meet the new needs required, and a small addition to green space as well.
Yep, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't get your whole name.
Casey Gowrie,
Gallery?
Gowrie, G as in golf, O-W-R-I-E.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any questions for the applicant?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Certainly, Mr. McLean.
I know the application states that you're looking to add 7 new units, correct?
Correct.
And on the plans, I see boarding rooms. What, are those existing?
So there's one existing boarding unit consisting of 5 separate rooms with a shared kitchen and bathroom. Those are not part of these plans.
Those are existing.
That's an existing boarding unit, yep.
And they're, like boarding units, they share a kitchen?
Yep. Yeah, common kitchen, common bathroom.
And so those are like rentals, basically?
Yep, and those are all part of the 716 building, if you will. That is not,
Not part of this
Exactly.
proposal?
yeah,
Now, you don't live on the site, you know?
I do not.
Not occupied, do any of the owners?
no,
Occupy
it's
this
not owner
property?
occupied.
So the little Cape building,
So which
little,
one?
where Bark and Bubbles is, that
Yep.
building there? What's happening with that?
That is, we are proposing to add 1 unit in the basement below where the tax office is.
Okay,
And that's the only change to that building. And the Liberty Tax and Barks and Bubbles are existing commercial units, and we're not
okay,
changing those at all.
okay. Any other questions?
Without looking at this, can you tell me how many parking spaces you're adding?
There's gonna be 44 total. I believe it's 2 handicap total when it's all said and done, one which is van accessible. I believe there are 25 stalls on site right now, or 27.
It's about 27 based
Yeah.
on the current, my name, Michael Malinowski with Allen and Major Associates with the Civil Engineers. The space in the middle between what's the old barn and the large where the Liberty Travel, is extra wide. And as part of what we're proposing to do some sort of tandem spaces. The requirements call for 2 spaces per dwelling unit, so they're all numbered, so you get a unit, you'd be provided 2 spaces, so we can sort of double up on some of the odd-shaped existing pavement that's in there, so we can meet the requirements for parking on the property.
And the total becomes 41?
44.
Yep.
And don't forget the added green space.
I have
Yes.
the existing barn plan, I noticed, one of the proposed units, it says 6 and 7. And then there's a proposed unit 8. So I'm wondering, is 6 and 7, is that actually 1 unit or is that 2?
That would be 2 distinct units. I think, I'm not sure which plan you're referring to, but on 686, there's an attached barn. We'll be adding 2 units to that. And in the freestanding barn next to it, we are proposing 3 units in that. So
So,
the 6 and 7 would be a 6 and 7 count on that 686 structure, which is the brick-sided building, and then the barn attached in the rear.
okay, so then we have proposed unit 8, so that's 8 new units, am I correct? You're saying 7, but I'm coming up with 8.
We are only proposing 7. I'm not sure where the discrepancy is. Let me pull up the architecture.
This would be the existing, plans barn. Proposed units 6 and 7. It's all one unit, and it says 6 and 7.
Which page are you referring to on the?
AEX 105.
That's the existing, you said, right?
Oh, it says proposed.
Sorry, is it 686? AEX 105. Okay.
6, 7, 8.
Does anyone else see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it says
it
proposed
says
unit
proposed unit number 8.
There's 8, 6 and 7 are together one, but I don't know if it's one unit or two.
What's this page here?
It does say unit, though, so for some reason, they're calling one unit by two numbers.
Yeah, that's, I guess, why I'm confused. So I'm wondering if we're looking
I
at,
think that might just be a numbering mistake.
is that, oh, so we are, you know, I'm just wondering if we're, is it 7 units or
It is.
8?
It is definitively 7 units. There are 2 units here, 3 units here, 1 unit here, and 1 unit here.
Okay, so
So
where it
that-
says unit 6 and 7 should probably just be 7
Six.
or 6. And
There
8
are
should-
2 units in that building proposed, but I believe this is just a numbering mistake on the existing structure here.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
1 unit.
When all is said and done on the lot, how many living units are gonna be on the site, and how many retail units are gonna be
There are
on
going
the
to
site?
be 19 living units,
19
including
living-
that boarding house that is 5 rooms, and then 2 commercial spaces, the tax office and Barks and Bubbles.
Do we want to formalize that on the staff review? So we have an exact number of units of, I know,
You could, but the way I look at it, what he's referring to as the boarding unit is really a 5-bedroom apartment. It's 5 bedrooms. It's a common area and a kitchen. No different than most apartments, just the number of bedrooms may be more than what is normal, but the fact that the bedrooms are rented individually is not an
It doesn't
issue
make
one
them a
way or the
separate
other.
unit.
Right, doesn't make it a separate
It
unit.
wouldn't matter, because it's a permitted use anyway in that area, boarding house.
It's an
right?
existing use, and it's allowed in that
Yeah,
zone
yeah.
as well. yeah.
well, I'm just thinking about in the future that it's clear that we know how many living units are on the lot and how many retail units are on the lot.
Like I said, I consider it to be a 5-bedroom unit, and I think it's a matter of when we finalize the plans, that we make sure that that unit is labeled as 1 unit as opposed to,
So that would be a total of 14 units then?
He said total, is what, 17?
Sorry, the
Overall.
total, including the boarding house as a 1 count, would be 19 with
Okay,
these new
That's
additions.
a 1 count,
Okay.
all right.
Yes,
So
yeah, counting the boarding house as
19
1.
units
that was
and-
okay.
yeah, there are
And
12
2
12
commercial.
now,
I think it's,
We're
including.
at 12 now, yeah.
It's also specifically spelled out on the site plan, because we have to designate the parking. The boarding unit carries a different parking designation than the traditional units. So we do have it spelled out in our parking table. 18 dwelling units, we've got 1 of the 5 bedrooms, and then we've got the 2 separate commercial spaces. So they're all detailed on the site plans.
if you think about it, rooming houses are, would be a good transition for our large homeless population, you know? All you need is a job, and you can usually afford a room in a rooming house. Anyway, there used to be more of them,
Used to be.
right? There used to be all kinds of motels and cabins on the boulevard, and they're all condos now, too. All right, any other questions? No questions, okay. Then we're gonna open the public hearing, I guess it's 7:17. Are there any abutters to this project that wish to be heard? Come on down. Any members of the public that wish to be heard? Close the public hearing at 7:17 without any public comment, and turn it over to Mr. Trefethan.
They have met all the requirements as outlined by the site plan regulation. as you requested, you wanted to know information about the impact fee. They are creating 7 new units, so it would be 24,000. To my knowledge, we have not had a discussion with them about the waiver, so my comments from the previous application, I would apply to this one as well. I have to look a little bit more at this one about whether, due to its location, whether it qualifies for the infill aspect, but it may or it may not. I'm not sure. So at this point in time, I would like to defer it to another meeting. It meets all zoning requirements. If the board decides to approve, we've outlined some of the reasons that we believe are pertinent in a finding of the fact that site plan regulations have been met. Urban Commercial District allows this type of use. We are getting 7 additional units of housing, which the city desperately needs, and there is no additional square footage of building being created. They are finishing off some areas, but there's no outside changes to this.
Okay, any questions for staff?
I just have
Mr.
one.
McWilliams, sure.
I know you mentioned, Dean, a question about the impact fees. You're not quite certain whether this location would qualify as infill. I would just like to ask the board to consider the fact that this is not an owner-occupied type property. It's a little bit different kind of situation than other infill impact fee waiver applications we've seen in the past where we have granted that waiver. I would ask this board to consider limiting this waiver to something less than 80%. Just my personal feeling about that.
I don't believe the issue of a waiver is before us this evening.
The director did mention that he would pursue
He'd look
that
into it,
discussion,
yes.
so I just want to throw that out there if I may.
You certainly may. Any other comments? Okay, well, the motion would be to approve PL 2023-0006 SP. For the board having found that it will add desperately needed units to our housing stock, preserve an existing rooming house type situation, generally improve the appearance, increase green space, and redevelop an existing mixed-use parcel into a newer, more intensely used mixed-use development. Subject also to all the conditions set forth in the staff report. Would anyone care to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion has been made by Mr. Belleville. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Joseph. Any discussion on this motion? Sensing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Good luck.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your interest in Lakeport. All right. PL 2023-0007 SP was to come in right after this other one. And 0008 CUP. It looks like it's a change of use with no alterations. This is the former Bob's Lock and Key, I believe, right?
Correct.
I have a question before we move forward. Now, didn't we have a conceptual that was gonna include this? There was gonna be a development that went down Keyser
It
Court,
was,
like an L shape?
yes, this property was going to be combined with 2 other properties, structures be demolished, and there was going to be a large apartment building and commercial building built on the site. Obviously, well,
That ain't
let me
gonna
let me rephrase that. At this point in time, I am not aware that they are going to go forward with that.
Had they acquired the properties?
They own the property, they own a couple of the properties. I'm not sure that they closed on all of them, but
So is that the applicant this evening? The same people that made the
partly,
conceptual presentation?
partly, yes.
Oh, all right.
Now, approval of this, if you were to approve this, would not necessarily preclude with the other development going forward if they
Certainly
wanted
not,
to at some point in time, but at this point in time, this is the application that's before you.
And by God, we need more used car lots in this city. I've been saying that for years. Well,
We have to accept this.
I mean, we have a
Yes, you do.
skateboard park, you know, we have a wow trail. Hi there.
So, my name's Trevor Bledecki. I am the applicant.
Chair, Mr. Chair.
A little
Oh,
bit.
We need to, hang on a second,
Yep.
Trevor. Wadecki, eh? It's in order and ready for acceptance?
Yes, it is.
All those in favor of accepting? All right, and it has been accepted by the board, and you may proceed, Trevor.
Okay, so again, I'm Trevor Bledecki. I'm the one that proposed this. What I'm looking to do is have a used car dealership on Court Street at this property. Basically, just a small used car store. I have a map drawn up. It has 15 spots for display vehicles. We have 2 employee spots, a handicap access, and 2 customer parking spots. So should be adequate. Everything I drew up, 5 feet from the property line, so we don't have any issues with that because we need the setback.
Curb cuts are gonna be the same?
What's that?
The curb cuts, are
Yeah,
gonna
so
remain the
nothing is
same?
gonna change as far as the structure on the property, pavement, curbs, any of that stuff whatsoever. So it's basically just a straight change of use.
The sign will be the same size, you'll just rebuild
Yeah, I'll
what's
just,
there.
that's exactly my intention is same exact sign, put my sign up there. Trying to do this simplistically, you know, without doing a million different things.
Well, that's good.
Yep, but
I wasn't really being facetious when I said we need more used car lots, because last year I had to buy a car and I had to drive too far.
oh, you don't have to do that. You come right down to Court Street after you approve this.
Well, I ended up buying local, let's
Yep.
put it that way.
You gotta buy locally.
Yeah. All right, any questions for the applicant about this change of use? How long has it been, has that building been vacant for a couple of years?
It's been vacant for a good at least 2 years. I think even more than that, to be honest with you. I mean, I drive by it every day. It doesn't look like there's been anything
Are
going on.
you
for
the
quite a while.
existing owner of this?
I am not the owner.
You're
no.
not the owner.
No, the owner is Community Rentals LLC. Been dealing with one of the, I've been dealing with the members. But I've been dealing exclusively with Derek, who's one of the members there.
Okay, and that was the group that came in with a conceptual that included this at one point?
Correct.
Right, okay, I got it.
So
you're
I
gonna
spoke
be-
to him
you'll
about
be
that.
their
They're not
less- You'll be
moving
their
forward.
lessee.
Yes, I would be leasing, correct.
All right. Any questions for the applicant? All right, sensing none, we're gonna open the public hearing at 7:26 PM. Are there any abutters here that wish to be heard about this property? This is 263 Court Street. Any members of the public wish to be heard, just on general principle? All right, sensing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:26 and a half. And we'll get the staff report, please.
Staff recommends approval of the application. This is, you're correct, Mr. Chair, this is a change of use, and because this particular use also requires a conditional use permit from the board, so they have applied for that. So it would be approval of both the use in the site plan that they are proposing and the conditional use permit. Other than that, there is nothing unusual on the staff report to take of note.
Okay. Questions for staff? Mr. Mora?
Dean, all that parking along the property line, is that a residential abutter there? And does that parking, would that parking be affected by a setback? for lot 59 there.
It is subject to the 5-foot. There may need to be a fence or some type of screening there. That's a good catch. I think we should add that to the.
Well, the
condition.
question was about setback.
Yeah, it's a 5-foot.
Where would the fence be, within the setback?
Fence could be within the setback, or it could be right on the property line, either one. Or it could be hedging, or any, you know, some type of screening. Doesn't have to be a fence per se, but
Okay, but the plan as submitted, does it include, does it? and
it
does
has the 5-foot setback.
Has the
on it.
setback on it?
Yep.
On the plan?
Yep.
All right.
If I
Any
may?
oth- Sure. Mr. McLean.
Dean, just, I guess more of a general question. I mean, as a planning board, I mean, our mandate is to obviously approve applications, but also planning, city planning as far as what areas are most desirable for certain kinds of developments, whether they be residential, light industrial, entertainment, districts, if you want to call it that. I guess my concern is, you know, you think about auto sale, Union Avenue is like the auto mile. And to me, that's where these kinds of developments belong. As a board, do we have the ability to say that and outline those sort of desires as a planning board?
You do, however, in this particular case, I think you have to look at the general neighborhood and realize that there are a couple of service stations, you know, repair stations, I should say, in the area, of one of which has a tremendous amount of vehicles on it. And then, you know, not too far up the street, you have, you know, gas station and those kinds of things. I think in a perfect world where you may be looking for aesthetics for one of the gateway streets into the city, that is certainly something that you could consider. But I think, my personal opinion is, I think you would have a hard time justifying the aesthetic condition given the present condition that's there now. If this was the exception, that would be a very legitimate point to make, but this is, in my opinion anyways, not the exception.
And I guess what I would throw in there too is, it is certainly within the board's jurisdiction to take into consideration the appearance, access and egress, all these sort of big issues, the transportation flow through the city. These are all master planning activities, though. They're not done on an application by application basis. And the other comment I would make is that if the city's going to mandate significant changes based on aesthetics or increasing green space or, you know, biodiversity or any of those things, the city ought to be prepared to pay at least part of the cost of that. It's like the sidewalks issue. We require the developers to put in sidewalks, and yet the city spends no money on sidewalk construction at all. So you end up with isolated sections of sidewalk. This gateway to the city concept is not new. It's been around forever and ever, and I think the director is correct in saying it's not an incompatible use with the existing. But yes, if the board says, hey, we want to see what we can do lawfully, you know, awesome. It's going to be a long process, though. We can only recommend changes to the zoning ordinance. We can, and as this application points out, I mean, clearly, You're going from one permitted use to another permitted use. It would be, strange to require, anything of an aesthetic nature, since there's no change, the net change is zero in the existing housing, the existing buildings and
Permitted
structures.
use, however, which is, it's outside of aesthetics.
Which is, in a case like this, in this neighborhood, not a big deal. It might be a big deal if it was surrounded by residential housing, or, an old folks' home was right next door or something, but that's not the case. This is an area of the city that's traditionally had, a heavy commercial development, all the way back to when we had streetcars, So, that is our legacy. And don't forget, Court Street, Union Avenue, and Weirs Boulevard was US Route 3 and in the main drag for many, many, many years. And it got built up just like Route 66 did. And we have seen in our own lifetimes here a change in the land use along that whole corridor. And I think overall it's changing for the better. I think to waste good lakefront, for example, with commercial and industrial uses, when it's a much greater value for residential use, as we saw with the former Barton's Motel, perfect example. So, oh my gosh, where we're losing one type of temporary housing stock, but we're gaining all this additional stock. It's just at the opposite end of the spectrum from what we're dealing with. We could talk about that, and then we could call a meeting of the Master Plan Steering Committee and have a discussion about the aesthetics. But as the director pointed out, if this board is gonna sit and impose aesthetic conditions, there's gotta be published standards. It can't just be, I don't like that color.
I don't know if it's really a question of aesthetics, I think it's more a question of use.
Well, why is a used car lot any different than the existing use, which is a vacant building? Which is the highest and best use for the property?
I don't know if that's for me to answer that question.
Well, that's my answer to your question. The change of use from vacant to generating income.
I guess my last concern to the director would be, there was some mention of the previous conceptual plan that had been presented to the board. This project, again, would not necessarily mean the end of that concept.
It does not preclude it from continuing if the property owners so choose to. I mean, they would have to deal with his lease, but.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so that's still possible.
Peter, doing a drive-by there, it's kind of dilapidated, and I'm sure Mr. Beldecki will improve the look of it now. And the whole place is going commercial anyhow, with Stafford Oil building up. And, it's a commercial area, so I think Mr. Beldecki will make it better than it is right now.
Well, if it's been empty for a year or two, he's gonna need to do some renovation and maintenance, obviously. And he's gonna change the signage, so. Anyway, are there any other, where are we at? We have questions for staff, right? I think we did that.
We did that.
I would just point out to you, Mr. Chair, on the staff report, that I would replace 2A, that's a carryover from another, it's a cut and paste error. I would replace 2A with fence or screening at the rear property line.
I'm sorry.
Planning conditions.
Planning conditions.
What about the sign? He's the side, and then he has the rear.
He's not parking there, so he's okay.
He's not
I don't
putting
know, what
it
is
on
he,
the side.
changing it to what?
Screening.
Fence or screening is required at the rear property line.
Oh,
The
a
rear
fence
and
or-
the side?
No, because he's not parking there.
It says here that he is.
Depends on which plan you're looking at.
only
The
one I was
west
given.
side.
So there's a revised plan.
Yeah, there's a
Ah, I
revised
did
view.
not
Look
get the
here,
revised
this-
plan.
So after the TRC meeting, Scott had emailed me, told me I needed to do this, that, and the other.
Okay.
And I drew a different one.
Oh, well, that's different.
Oh, look at that, that's
I
way
apologize.
better.
That's
Yeah,
different.
I figured when I emailed him, it would go to absolutely everybody.
It did not.
Okay, all right, that's way better.
All right, I'm good. Does
So just
everybody-
so you
can
know, there's no
everybody see
parking there.
Pass it down.
it? Passing it down.
We'll pass it around.
Yes, of course. I thought everybody had it, so I apologize for that.
You did say 19 parking spaces?
Yes, so there is
Better than
15 display spots, 2 employee, 2 customer, and a handicap plus handicap access zone.
Because the plan I have shows 32.
Yes, so they, I was told that I had to have 9x19s, which I obviously skimped a little bit at the beginning, trying to fit as much as possible. So every parking space is 9x19, and then plus I had that 5-foot setback I had to add in. And then with that 5-foot setback on the western side of the property, you wouldn't be able to parallel park cars
Okay.
there. So that's why you have one plan that's a little bit busy, and then I've submitted a more simplistic one, which I assumed everybody had gotten. I did that 2 days after the TRC meeting.
Okay.
paperwork, so is.
So the fence
Sounds
would
like
be on the back line of the property,
Correct,
opposite court.
correct.
And either a fence or vegetative screening,
Yeah.
something like that?
Maybe some blueberry bushes.
So can I interject
I
real
wouldn't
quick?
recommend it.
Yes.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, on that back portion of that property where we're saying we need fence, there's a drop off there, then there's just like an open area, and then I believe there is shrubbery on the other side. I mean, I granted the parking lot obviously goes to the property line, but that behind there,
As long
there's
as you,
nothing right there.
as long as he preserves the setback, he doesn't have to put a fence there, does he?
Commercial to residential, yes. Have to have screening. Commercial parking to residential, where there's a house there.
Based on the use, not the zone, right?
Right.
So,
Yes,
okay, so the abutter on that side is residential.
correct.
All right, that's why. So, like a privacy fence, or plantings of white cedar or something like that.
Yeah,
fast growing.
something that would prevent headlights from, so 4-foot fence, for instance, would be more than adequate.
Okay. All right then, here, you can pass that
That
around.
abutting lot, though, that's the same one that comes around from the side, so that's the same owner. Can they waive that requirement, since it's the same property owner?
There's a different residential property on the back end. That's a there's a.
Yeah, but
house-
this one here is the wraparound
Yeah.
from this residential, that's the same owner that did that conceptual?
No, they
Design?
can't waive.
They can't waive
one
that?
of our
Okay.
requirements.
Just a question.
Good one, good question. All right, well, the question then, if they're, assuming that we have no more questions for staff, is whether we approve PL 2023 0007 SP and 0008 CUP, the change of use from vacant building to auto sales at 263 Court Street. Both, the use is permitted in the zone, and it's consistent with the character of the existing structures in that area. Subject to the conditions set forth in the staff report with the modification to 2A regarding the erection of a fence along the abutting property where the parking is.
Your motion includes both the use and the CUP, correct?
Yes, I did read both docket numbers, I think.
Could I make a friendly amendment to that motion, if I make the motion?
If you're friendly, you can get almost anything out of this board.
Could I leave it open, could we make that, the 2A, vegetative or solid fence, so at least they have an option?
Yeah, I
Sure.
mean, yeah, they could do bushes or,
Okay,
yep.
yeah.
A vegetative barrier or,
4 foot height.
it doesn't have, yeah.
Well, right, you'd have, yeah, well, I think technically it's 3.5 feet for 42 inches, I think is the requirement, if I remember right.
Okay.
I like the blueberry idea,
They won't like it.
no?
Birds.
Yeah,
And
rent car
cars.
dealership.
Oh, my
They
God,
don't
birds
get
and
along
cars.
very well. They love
Don't insult my
blueberries.
inventory.
Oh, that's right.
I don't recommend
How
it.
stupid of me. Just because I would want to go pick blueberries and you use car lots someday.
I'd be picking them too.
I know you would. Okay. So I think there's a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, and we have a motion by Mr. Moore and a second from Mr. Belleville. Is there any more discussion on this matter? Sensing not. All those in favor of approval, please raise your hands. Those opposed? And it's, we have one in opposition, Mr. McWilliams. And the approval is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody's favorite part of the agenda.
I have one at home.
Was the one
Can I
that's
have it?
dark for tonight?
Thank you.
Yes.
We did it already.
Oh, you did, I missed it?
You did.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Pete.
Yeah, good to see you. Been a while.
Making record time tonight.
I think he's in the butter.
I think it was too.
Of, but he was late.
Audie?
Okay, do we have any new business? I'm gonna throw something out here. So, with all due respect, Mr. McWilliams, obviously, you do your homework, you come well prepared, you've read every page, and your questions are wonderful. But I don't think that we should be suggesting waivers of anything. There is a process by which the applicants can seek waivers of anything under the rules. That's within our purview to grant. But bringing it up at the final hearing only, well, in this case tonight, for example, it just confused the applicant. And I don't know, the purpose of the impact fee, you gotta understand, is for the developer to pay one-time infrastructure cost, because there is some effect on the infrastructure. And we are a tax cap community, which means that we can't just keep going out there and appropriating funds. We have to stay within parameters. And one of the ways to get the private sector to pay some of the costs of running the city is by the imposition of the impact fees.
With all due respect, I totally understand the purpose of impact fees and how they help fund all the various departments that will be impacted by an increase in population and usage, et cetera.
Yep.
But we have in fact had citizens come to this board seemingly unaware that they were eligible for a waiver. And I thought that the board was extending a courtesy to those folks by informing them that they had that they may be eligible for that.
I think I'd be
Waiver.
appalled to think that the applicant was not aware of it, because they've been dealing with staff.
Messer Street was a good example.
Well, and that's, I understand that there are people that are not represented by professionals that come before this board and they don't understand the process. They literally stand at the podium and say, I don't know why I'm here. But what I'm getting at is, there is an application form, there's a form to request a waiver. These are planning department functions. It's for the planning board to do it. If an applicant were to come before us and ask for a waiver, then of course we could discuss that as within our approval process. But I don't think it's in the city's best interest for us to be offering discounts just because we want to make sure they know they're available. That's kind of like steering everybody to the clearance aisle. You know what I mean?
Contractors ask for it all the time.
Well, I know that.
They're more aware of
And professional, representatives, they know, they know about the waiver process.
Yeah, I think we have an obligation to be, to represent the citizens and to look after their interests as well.
Well, I disagree. I think that's staff's job, not ours.
We did have some discussion about lowering our impact fees and have no waivers.
Right.
At one time, was that correct, Dean, or?
I don't remember that discussion. You could have,
Like, it was probably a year ago, because we kept giving waivers.
Yeah.
And it's like, why have an impact fee and then waive 80% of it? We should just have more realistic impact fees and no waivers.
Well, I think in general, waivers are an equitable power. We have to use our waiver power to make something more equitable. Like, again, I'm sure that's what was motivating you tonight. Please don't take it personally. There was a person there that could well have been an excellent applicant for waiver relief, based on their facts. But until you brought it up, they didn't even know that they could. And I just don't think we should be initiating the waiver discussion. They have to come and bring it to us, It's
Is
just
it-
my view. What do you guys think?
Is that a thing that you normally do in the office? Because I have no idea.
we, we're on TV, aren't we?
Sorry.
No, that's all right. It's a judgment call, I think, from staff's standpoint. So the projects that I can remember that staff recommended doing the waivers, not necessarily exclusively, but the ones that I remember are from nonprofits. It was the building at the corner of Union and Main Street where they converted into senior housing.
Sunrise
The
Place.
Blueberry Lane project where, those kinds of things.
The school on Church Street.
The school on Church Street, yes. Not necessarily every person that comes along and wants to build something that requires an impact fee, do we recommend? And I mean, if you say to me, we want you to at least discuss the issue with every applicant, I'm more than happy to do that. But I would be before you on certain occasions recommending that you do not grant the waiver because, let's face it, as the chair alluded to, we would like to collect these fees as much as we can. They go to very good uses in the city's coffers, so it's but I mean, and like I say, it's not exclusively been nonprofits and low income and those kinds of things, but generally speaking, the strictly for private, I'm building this and I'm going to be making profit type people, I don't know that we've really had that discussion very much with them about the waivers. Like Mike said, the professionals that are in here all the time, they know about it anyway, and they're going to ask, and that's a different story. But for the two examples
I can never
tonight,
remember denying a waiver. I can't recall somebody asking and we denied.
right, but there's been
Denying a sidewalk waiver, not impact.
No, well, the impact waiver, yeah. And that may be true, Mike, but it also means that on many applications, we haven't recommended it to you. It's just, I think that's why you had the discussion a few months ago of adding the information about the impact fee onto the staff recommendation.
When somebody comes in, a non-professional, just a homeowner, do you have like a packet that explains step by step what the process is? Because if you simply made it an item on that list, you may be eligible for a waiver, inquire of the staff, something like that.
They get the checklist. One of the items on the checklist is waiver requests.
Okay, as long as every applicant gets that.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sure that you and your staff have brought it up when somebody would be a good candidate for a waiver.
We think it's appropriate.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is that I think should rest in the discretion of the department, unless it comes up spontaneously. I mean, we couldn't not deal with it after you mentioned it. At that point, the guy's like saying, I don't know anything about the waiver. It's, whoa, sure, I'll go for it. And I think we found a way around that. But I just think,
So I have a question.
If there-
Besides the check block on the application about waivers, at what point does the applicant get to see this that comes in front of us? Because now we've added this, the very first statement in here is whether they would be eligible for a waiver or not.
When Kalina sends out the packet
Oh, so like a week before.
to the board,
Okay.
she sends the agenda and the individual staff reports. She doesn't send all the staff reports to every applicant, just the one that pertains
Okay.
to them.
But we're gonna go forward like we kind of established tonight, where we can still approve an application, and they can come in before the next meeting and request the impact waiver? Or is that just something we're gonna allow tonight?
No, they could do that. They could do that anytime before they're issued their certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking, I've never been through the process. I may be going through the process soon, but I would think that at some point, before I even make application to the city, I'm going to have a budget for this project. I gotta know how much money I'm either gonna have to have on hand or be able to finance, and it'd have to include an impact fee. If it's on the checklist that you said, well, how much is that gonna cost me, and how much is this gonna cost me? And we just added, what, $1,000 to this guy's cost by making him put up a fence or do some privacy plantings. I mean, you know, everything has a dollar value to it.
Yep.
And we have a formula for calculating the impact fee, and that's the easiest thing, just calculating that amount. You know, maybe instead of the checklist, you could actually write in on that document what the impact fee would be. Give them notice up front. But I think it's whether it's a private individual or a professional, to a certain extent, knowledge of the process is key. And if they need assistance from the staff, they should get it. So that when they come before us, they know why. You know, we've seen recently a couple of people that stood there and literally said, "I'm here because they told me to stand here." You know, this is where I had to go.
I can assure you that multiple times we explained to them why, and they just,
But I don't know, I
whatever
mean, maybe
reason.
instead of a checklist, a simple two-page explanation of what all the things are, even a glossary maybe.
We
You
could
know,
do that.
what is an impact fee, what is a,
we could do that.
yeah, I would feel more comfortable, and I'm sure Mr. McWilliams would agree, that we are confident that when they come before us, they are aware of the fact that they could get a waiver if they wished.
Or they could
Well-
ask for the waiver. Doesn't mean they'll get it.
They could ask
They
for
can
a
ask.
waiver, they could apply for a waiver if they wished, yes.
This particular applicant struck me as the type of individual, homeowner, doing some renovations, as an excellent candidate for a waiver.
Yeah.
The other application, on the other hand, I feel totally opposite. Those are
Just because
property
one
investors.
was more commercial than residential, or?
No, one was a owner-occupied home, the other was some property investors.
Right.
Okay, that's to me, anyway. So, you know, if we're gonna put the waiver eligibility on the agenda, I mean, would you prefer that we not bring it up? I mean, why is it on there?
All I'm saying is
We
that it's
asked that
not,
it be added.
it's not, something's wrong if the first they hear of the waiver is when they're standing before the planning board. And it's not we don't have an obligation to bring that up. I
So-
don't, we're the
So,
approving.
Mr. Chair, you would prefer that myself, other board members, not bring it up in the application process and
You can
discussion?
do whatever, I'm not telling you what to do, this is just my opinion. I don't think it's appropriate for the board to be suggesting waivers to applicants.
So, let me just ask the plan, when it says up to 80%, who makes the ultimate decision? Is it 50, 80, 25? How does that determine? It's not determined by this
Well,
board?
no, it is, because we've done that, like Mike said, I can't recall any time where we denied a waiver, but there have been ones where we debated
And
and
reduced it?
said, yes, and said, hey, well, you know what? Even though this is infill or whatever, it's still gonna have some kind of impact, so we'll give them 50%, and we kind of went back and forth, and 60%, 80%.
And those were
50.
cases where the applicant was fully knowledgeable about the eligibility
Right,
for
where,
the
where
waiver.
they had requested the
Requested.
waiver, and it stated it in the beginning of the thing where it said CUP and everything. It said applicant is also requesting a waiver of impact
It's the first
fees.
item on the sheet,
Hey,
underneath
Dean?
the title block, so.
Could you do some research for us and perhaps get us maybe the last 10 waivers that we
Dealt
appro-
with?
You
that
mean
we
an
dealt with
impact fee?
for impact fees? Just so I think the board has a better understanding of the type of projects that we have reduced or waived impact fees. And then is there a criteria that we've ever thought about having for reduction of impact fees of you have to meet
Not-
X, Y, and Z?
Not per se. I mean, you've been there, it's more of a judgment call of staff of whether we
Yeah,
think
I
the
mean-
project is deserving of a decrease in the impact fee. And as I said, you know, when you talk about the nonprofits and that kind of thing, it makes sense, because why add additional cost to a project that in theory is, you know, reaching for every dollar anyway, but, I can do that. I just caution the board that it's not a full picture, because there are, in amongst that, there would be several applications, or many applications that, they didn't request a waiver, and I don't know that we necessarily discussed it with them at all, you know, for the reasons that I've stated. You know, it's more of a judgment call on our part of, you know, if you're certain sections of the city, or you're doing a certain type of project.
I mean, there's been some larger projects, I think, that have gotten it because of the type of project that they're doing.
Yeah, rehab and infill, and that's, those two terms are very subjective and can cover a lot of ground, but, I mean, you know, the old Catholic school is an example of, obviously, somebody's making a lot of money off of that, but in terms of, do we want to have a vacant building sitting there, or do we want to have it turned over into something, maybe it makes sense to do the waiver, and we did, but there are other projects. I don't remember what we did on Mesa Street, but in my mind, you know, personally, I don't think that they, you know.
Well, the 2 points that I think I want to make is, number one, I see us as we sit as a quasi-legislative judicial body. We are making decisions on the merits, based on the application that is being made. And we make that, we have to take into consideration the staff's report, what the applicant says, the documentation submitted, the public hearing. Those are the things that we are supposed to be looking at. But to do, for us to feel like we have a duty to make sure that they're aware of everything is akin to a judge during a trial saying to the plaintiff's attorney, why don't you add this other ground to your suit? You probably get more. You know, that's inappropriate. That's not maybe helpful. And in rare cases, it might be the equitable thing for us to do. Like, we might, as a body, say, my God, this guy's gonna have to pay $57,000 worth of impact fees because of the way it's calculated. We could bring it up in that case, I suppose, but that, if the paperwork that we have in front of us doesn't give us some reason to grant the waiver on the merits of the applications, then we shouldn't do it. Just because one of us thinks, boy, this guy could use a break. Because then if we do that, then we gotta do it with all of them, don't we?
Not necessarily.
Well, why? Why should we
based on
discriminate
merits.
between the guy that comes in here in a three-piece suit and the guy that comes in his sweatpants?
There's a difference between, infill and new development and just property investors. I see it as all different categories, especially new development versus rehab.
Well,
slash infill.
Going forward, we'll see how it works out. I think it's a productive discussion. Is there any other productive discussion that we would like to have under new business?
I'd like to point two things out. One,
Okay.
you're incorrect about judges doing that. Come look at the record of my divorce. The judge was making all sorts
But you were a party to that action. So that could explain something.
And the second thing is, everybody sitting here, unlike me and one or two others, don't realize you're walking around with a cup that says Schitt's Creek on it.
It's facing the public too. What it says is, I am a
Suitable
Shit
for the
Creek
first application.
survivor.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a member of the Shit Creek Canoe Club. Its motto is, been up and back.
That's in-
Without a paddle.
that's
Without
in
a paddle.
Subic Bay in the Philippines.
Well, we have had quite a bit of discussion about excrement this evening, and I think that's, the record will reflect that. Old business.
Yes, sir,
Okay,
if you don't mind.
yes.
So as you may recall,
While you were sunning yourself last month.
no, this was before that, but if you may recall, a few months ago, we approved a used car dealership at 1103 Union Avenue, the former Motorcycle Association building there. Part of their condition of approval was that they would not park cars along Zion Hill Road, between Zion Hill Road and the adjacent property. They have been. We have had several phone calls, and the cars get moved, but then they reappear within a couple of days. We have sent 2 letters, same result. The last letter insinuated that if they did not correct and maintain the condition, that I would bring the matter back to the planning board, and possible outcome of that would be revocation of the site plan.
I think you should
So
put it
I
on the
want-
agenda for next month.
I would want to be able to use, I would like to have consensus from the board that that is an approach that you would like to take, because I would like to have that little big stick behind
I've
me.
noticed, because I look, every time I drive by, I don't think I've driven by there one time when there wasn't a car there. They had a pile of pallets out there last
I
week.
would agree.
So I think
But
you
moving
should,
right along,
I think the
wait.
next thing, yeah, go ahead.
The car dealer a little further down the road that didn't want to put up any trees is advertising for my box now. He's got a storage unit out in front by the road.
I did notice that. I will inquire about the My Box, don't worry.
You know,
Well, anyway.
Wait, is it my box or is it a different one?
Blue
It's a different
box.
red and blue or
Blue
something.
box.
Okay,
Blue box.
I didn't
Everybody's-
know if you were talking about a
Everybody's
different
in the
one. or
container
something.
business.
It's a his box, not a My Box.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like,
Her box.
you know, there hasn't been a car in that lot since he built it. No trees, of course, but now he's advertising for, you know, a storage company.
Well,
Well, I'm not, I don't know why it's there, I did notice that the other day, and we'll find out, and you're right, it should not be there.
so schedule it on the agenda for the next meeting and call it revocation of approval, something like that, get his attention. And then he can come before us and explain to us why he finds it impossible to abide by the terms of his conditional use permit.
Will do.
You know, it's kind of like a show cause hearing, right? I mean,
And instances from now till then, when
Right.
they're not
Well-
abiding by this stuff.
well, and plus the other thing too is that if we don't move quickly, we end up with a situation like we had at Ontario, right? So you had, you know, a period of 10 years when approval had not been enforced at all, and now they're come back and they want to amend an approval that they never were in compliance with in the first place. Well, part of that's on us, you know, because we
That goes
didn't.
back, Mr. Chairman, though.
Oh,
to the
I know.
fact We don't have enough staff.
I know. I know. Anyway,
Could solve the problem with the cars on Zion, have the PD tow them all and impound them.
Technically, they own the land, so I'm not sure we could do that. But it's definitely a violation of their conditional approval, and
you know why that road is there, don't you? Because at the time that that church was built, the Clark Avenue people filled this room. They did not want their dead-end street to be the access. That's why because there was no road there. They had no other way to get access to Union Ave. And now it's moot, because there is development up there, but.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes.
That's where the cookie
So, do you want to do the planning department report?
I can.
All right.
Had a Zoom meeting today with the developer of the development team for the state school property. They are moving ahead with their plans. The current timetable is that this board should see a conceptual / master plan type presentation in June or July.
Are they gonna make use of the master plan that Charlie's commission? I'm not Charlie, George's commission.
I don't, there were some similarities between the plan that you saw at the public meeting a few months ago, and I have not seen their most recent conceptual, so I don't know how much it adheres one way or the
Is
other.
this gonna be a single developer?
This is a single developer for the entire property. They may partner with other people to do certain parts of it, but they are going to be the overall developer of the entire parcel.
Well, so we might see that next month?
No,
No.
June or July.
June or July. So it would be so my question to you then would be, is there anything that this planning department should do to gear up for this in advance?
We have been having discussions with them. They have had meetings with water and sewer. They have a meeting set up with New Hampshire DOT. So, I mean, they're hitting all the highlights, and they're getting feedback and ifs, ands, ors, and conditions, and you'll have to do this, or you'll have to do that, or we would prefer this, so they're taking all of that into consideration.
You
City
mentioned.
staff has had, overall, city staff, not just planning,
Right.
has had several discussions, in-depth discussions with parts of the team, pertinent parts of the team.
Right, there still hasn't been any public actions taken.
Correct.
Right.
Other than the presentation that we had here in, whenever that was, October, no.
Now, you have represented to us that one thing that might happen is that consultants would be hired at the expense of the developer
Yes,
to do certain portions of this.
absolutely.
Have you given it any thought to how that would work? For example, let's say they come to us and they have a master plan. They're gonna give us the master plan to approve, or are we gonna have a consultant look at the master plan and then make a presentation to us? Are there specific issues regarding the nature of the property? What about the infrastructure improvements that we've talked about? I think it may be very pie in the sky for us to think that the state is going to contribute any money to infrastructure improvements up there.
State is not gonna
No,
contribute one dime for anything.
Well, I know that, but that means that we're going to have to take a look at what the developer is prepared to do.
Yes, we're having those discussions.
Well, okay, so is your plan then to wait and see what they actually present before we contract with these consultants?
What we discussed today was that they would be presenting the plan, conceptual / master plan, to staff a month or more before they do a public. And we would include water and sewer and fire and whatever to be part of that discussion, or at least to weigh in their questions or concerns. We do this on a smaller scale with a lot of development proposals. You know, we go through and, you know, I mean, this is not like any other development proposal that we've had in the city.
This is gonna be the biggest development
Yeah,
project
this is-
since urban renewal.
This is bigger than that, Peter. This is in the top 5 largest developments in the entire state ever. So, anyway, but, you know, we go through the plans with, you know, water department looks at expected water usage and what is the proposed diameter pipe that they're proposing, is that adequate? Sewer does the opposite. Fire looks at, you know, turn radiuses and where are the fire hydrants and et cetera, et cetera. DPW is looking at storm drainage, road construction, and all of those kinds of things. We do that with any, you know, we did it with the Gardens, we did it with the Outlook, we did it with Barton's, we did it, I mean, anything that's of, you know, more than 3 or 4 units, we do that with them. And it's very useful to them because they do miss things and we do bring up issues, and it becomes a matter of what exactly is on the plan and what do we as a staff think are going to be issues. And at that point in time, we may say, we want to get a third party to review whatever it is. And maybe, for instance, just to give you examples of what we've done in the past, and we would do the similar type thing. Langley Cove, there were some steep slope areas there. We hired a third-party consultant to review their steep slope proposals of what they were going to do in terms of retaining walls and how they were going to handle them, and et cetera, et cetera. We did a third-party review for stormwater
Endicott East.
for stormwater drainage on, well, we did it on Langley Cove. I think there was another project. Oh, we hired one for 224 Endicott.
Right.
And when we were having the water problem, we hired a third-party person to go out there and do that. Now, these are smaller scale examples, and instead of hiring a person to do a review, we are, for this project, we are probably hiring a firm to do the review. And so instead of $3,000 for a person to review a set of plans, we're probably talking, I don't want to guess, but much more than that to have a firm. And you probably have to repeat the cycle on multiple occasions. I mean, one thing that they're going to have to do, they do not, at this point in time, do not have a final count of how many residential units there will be. It's not going to be quite as many as they had originally projected in October. It's going to be less. Exactly how much less, I don't know. But, so when they have a more accurate count of residential, then we're going to need to do a traffic study. You know, and New Hampshire DOT will be part of that. And like I said, we're having a meeting with them. You know, how far out do we go with that traffic study? Personally, I think we go from the intersection of Main and Union all the way back to the project, and we go out Parade to the Meredith Center Circle, and we go down Elm Street to the Lakeport intersection. I mean, I really believe the traffic study has to go that far out, because we are talking about a very substantial number of units, and they're going to go in different directions, so there's going to be impact everywhere.
There'll probably
But it could
be a
be-
new improved intersection by Robbie Mills, right, up at that, up the top.
That could be
Where
warranted.
the old Meredith
um,
Center Road came out.
Certainly, some form of upgrade to the current intersection of Elm and Parade will be needed. Exactly what that is, I don't know. Certainly, the intersection of North Main Street Parade and their new road will need an intersection improvement. Exactly what that will be, I don't know. Personally, I've always advocated for a roundabout there, because I don't think we want to have two major sets of traffic lights, so close together. But
Right.
that's my opinion, and whether New Hampshire DOT will go that route. They're very big on roundabouts right now,
Roundabout
so.
where, Elm?
No, North Main and Parade, and they may want to do it at Elm too, I don't know, but the
Well, I'm
traffic's.
thinking at the top of the hill where Eastman Shore Road intersects. Meredith
Yeah,
Center.
I don't know.
Because that's where the old route, Meredith Center Road went. It came out there. There's an
Right, right.
existing road.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
the
a through
traffic,
road,
the
but-
traffic study in theory will at least give us an indication of where they think the traffic's gonna go. I
Well,
mean,
they'll probably have access from there as well as from,
Yes, oh, yes,
106.
yes. So it's, and then we get into, and that's plan review. And there would be other third-party people that we will have to hire, I'm sure. When we get into construction, the biggest department the two biggest departments that are going to need help will be water and DPW. They do not have the staff, as we all know, to take care of all the inspections that they're doing currently throughout the entire city, because this is not the only project in the city. There are others, and there will be additional ones that are being proposed. So, and everybody's busy doing that currently. So, to put in several thousand feet of water line and several thousand feet of sewer line and several thousand feet of storm drain, it's gonna require constant inspection and supervision, and, our people can't be there 24/7. And this, to some degree, the same might be true for code inspections, the actual building inspections.
I think we
may
should
need
have a
We may
contracted
need to,
clerk of the works there.
or something to that effect.
Right.
Yes, we may need to do that, or we temporarily expand staff, or however we do it.
So the $64,000 question really is this master plan gonna be enough for this board to process this project? Or do we need to, preemptively make some changes? There's some good goals in here.
Yeah.
There's a good vision there.
Well, I think so.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
I think so. Now, there are certainly some decisions that need to be made by other entities in the city, more than just planning board approving a site plan, or there are other considerations. There's obviously a dovetail effect into Parks and Rec, there's a dovetail effect into police. At some point in time, when things get constructed, there's a dovetail effect to schools, for sure.
Yeah.
Not to the extent that most people probably think there will be, but there definitely will be. This project will generate school-aged children, there's no question. And that's one of the things we need to nail down in terms of, that depends a lot on the mixture of the housing and how much of it is single-family versus townhouse versus apartments versus some form of subsidized, and it is not, I want to emphasize this, cannot emphasize this enough, it is not Section 8 or anything equivalent to that, but it is more like new market investments and other programs out there that are tax deferments and those kinds of things to reduce the cost of building a unit, so therefore you can offer it at a lower rent. You know, there are projects, a lot of projects out there that do that. Rich was first, sorry.
Couple questions. Can the city require utilities to be placed in the ground?
We already require that.
Okay.
All electricity would be underground.
And if Liberty
And-
decides they want to put gas in?
If they want to put gas in, yes, they would
Okay.
have to, do.
The other thing
to
is,
do
I'm
all that.
assuming this is big enough, when they do, it's gonna need a Army Corps AOT permit also?
They will need an AOT.
Okay.
They will need an AOT from New Hampshire. I don't know about Army Corps.
Alteration of
Prob-
terrain.
Alteration of terrain, yes.
Right.
Definitely, and this will be one of the few projects in the city that will require a notification to area towns for a regional impact. It's just a statement that we send to their planning board saying, hey, this project's coming. If they don't know that already, shame on them, but we'll officially tell them that it's coming.
Well, make sure they know they can get a waiver too, you know.
Right. Brett had a question.
Are there any special considerations, say for setbacks or anything like that, for development due to the fact that one of the abutters is a state park? Or is that just considered a regular abutter?
That is considered a regular abutter. However, as part of your approval process, particularly at the conceptual stage, if you desire to have a larger setback or a bigger buffer or, you know, whatever, you certainly could,
Create a corridor.
you could, yeah, you could do that. I mean, one of the other discussions that we've had is what could they offer in the way of improvements to the state park to make it a better state park for everyone, but certainly it would be a fantastic amenity for
They
their
should convey it over to the
residents.
city and let
Because-
Amy run it.
No, I don't want that one.
Because if you go back there, on the backside of the state school property, some of that stormwater runoff comes down and feeds all of those wetland areas and everything down into the state park. So if they regrade the top of it, that's gonna stop that, and it's gonna change the nature of a lot of the stuff in the state.
There's a
park, or it
watershed
could.
boundary that runs right across the top of this thing.
Yeah,
Some
right.
part of it's gonna
Should get
be in
picked
the
up in the
Winnisquam
AOT.
watershed, and some of it's gonna be in the Winnipesaukee
Right,
watershed.
yes, correct.
That's, peachy.
Sewer's gonna go two different ways, too.
So, and again, I think that we've talked
gonna
about,
go uphill.
you know, trying to get the developer, to be sure that the developer does everything it can, that if the city were to be able to appropriate the funds to increase, say, water and bring water into Ward One, that the developer be required to make it ready to do it. You know, not necessarily have the developer do it, but make sure that the design includes the possibility of expansion. They gotta put a tower up to get pressure, that would benefit not just them, it would benefit Eastman Shore. I mean, the folks that were here a couple of meetings ago, they live down on Eastman Shore, that's what they're concerned about, that and runoff, so.
Yep, absolutely.
Again, you know, we've seen it before where, property owners resist such improvements because they have to pay their share of it. You know, if you put right, isn't that the law that if you put city water down the street, everyone's gotta connect up to it? If they, right?
Have to, no, but.
No?
You just gotta
We
pay.
went through that in my neighborhood with sewer not too long ago.
Really?
Yeah, would've cost me 41 grand to connect to the sewer.
So
Pump
he's
it
still
up.
dumping it in his neighbor's yard.
I trenched it, it goes to the
But
lake.
if-
Actually, lately, he's been putting it on this My Box thing on Union Ave.
But you're right.
Containerized.
From the standpoint of,
The brown box.
if they paid to install significant infrastructure that had excess capacity, and we certainly would encourage that, because, just as you said, you know, from the top of that hill there, it's downhill for a lot of people behind them. They could take advantage of having water, not sewer necessarily, because it's the wrong direction, but water anyway. And yes, there would be some type of connection fee that, you know, these people, the developer would, in effect, be recouping some of their investment. Not anything different than what was done on Endicott Street North for the condos up on Roller Coaster, where they extended the water, and now people who are trying to connect to that water, they gotta pay a fee to raise
Is there
some
a sewer interceptor along the shore of Winnisquam?
parts of it.
Okay,
And there's one along Opeachy.
yeah.
So the sewer will go two different ways.
We've had a lot of talk about
It will follow the downhill.
It does indeed. Thank God for gravity.
Yeah.
We'd all be spinning in space.
But
You might
because
wanna
the
know
exact,
that,
yeah, go ahead.
you might wanna know that some of those people on Eastman Shore and Layton Ave and whatever have had a startling increase in their tax bill, which will lead them to not want water or sewer or any other improvements. Some of my constituents have called with increases like $7,000 to $10,000 a year. Tax increase.
Yeah.
In
It's
1
tough
year.
to be rich.
Waterfront.
Yeah, and I mean, some of those are folks that lived there for 3 generations, and the guy works at, you know,
You know it, but that's the nature of things. I mean, look at Pogus Park. Pogus Park was a bunch of little cottages
Yeah.
that people built right after World War II for them to retire to, right?
Yeah.
And by the time they retired, they couldn't afford to pay the taxes. The taxes were more than the cost of the building.
Yep.
And so they ended up getting sold. And now we've got McMansions, vertical McMansions down there. I mean, $1 million properties. That nobody could have conceived of that at the time.
Yep.
It was just a little piece of land between the lake and the railroad, you
and
know?
nobody wanted to live on Winnisquam back then. They all
Right.
wanted to live on a big lake. Now suddenly Winnisquam is prime property.
Yeah, well, it's a nice lake. Certainly, we're going to be requiring them to follow all the, you know, sound environmental practices, both during construction, post-construction, so.
So, I mean, not just planning, but several departments in the city have been busy. We have had meetings with the city manager, and we have had discussions about what is it that we want to look for, what is it we're going to require, what is it that we need to do to get ready for this. I'm not privy as to how far those discussions have gone outside of that circle of immediate staff, but, so it's occurring. I know the city manager has talked with the superintendent, as an example, to get them on board and for what could be coming, and.
Well, let's make sure that there's representatives from all city departments when they come in and do the conceptual, so we're all talking about the same thing, because by the time they meet with the city officials, after that presentation, there may have been changes made.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think, you know, maybe we'll have some snacks out there.
If you would like to have snacks when they present, I'd be more than happy to.
I think at developer expense, of course. I mean, after all, we gotta let them know right up front.
Well,
This-
if we're gonna do that, we should specify what we want for snacks.
Well, I think anything that has the word roast beef in it would work.
That's a snack. I got 3 boxes
Dean.
of Girl Scout cookies down in the office right now. We
Sorry,
can save them
I'm
for,
trying to avoid carbs.
Well, hell, can we talk about scotch and,
There you go.
Well, there we go, there we go.
I mean, if
With poop and liquor, that's what we've been dealing with most of the evening. Do we, I don't mean to cut you, of
No,
course we
no,
are, we're
I'm-
live on Facebook,
I'm good.
oh, that's helpful.
YouTube, I know,
I'm good, thank you.
you're all set, okay. LRPC, are you still on it, Rob?
No.
Okay, and Stacy's not here tonight, I know she's gone. Conservation likewise?
Yep.
No? City Council.
Nothing I can think of.
Okay, good job. How about the Historic District Commission? Hysterical. No, no
Nothing
report.
new.
So we don't have any of that. So we've gone through it, and we did have a little time to have some discussion about procedural matters and took a look at things to come. So the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn at this point.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Belleville, seconded by everyone.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Leave.
Done.
Thank you.
We,
Seconded by everyone.
Jesus, a little grumpy tonight, are we? Need a hug?
Zoomed through them tonight. We had 0 public